Coming up, Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson has been in office for less time than Gordon Brown. And yet this week, crossbench peer and constitutional expert Lord Peter Hennessy told the BBC that our Prime Minister has broken the law, misled Parliament and has in effect shredded the Ministerial Code. The Queen's First Minister, he said, is now beyond doubt a rogue Prime Minister, unworthy of her Parliament, her people and her kingdom. In this video, I'm taking a look at some of the Johnson scandals, cover-ups, corruption and lying that has led Peter Hennessy to pronounce this stunning verdict on the Convict at number 10. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for choosing to watch the Truth to Power channel. I receive no funding and research, script, film and edit these videos all by myself, so a like and a subscribe are always appreciated. If you're watching this video on the 23rd of April, be sure to watch the live stream of Sunday Brunch tomorrow here on YouTube, Sunday the 24th of April, on the link below, where I'll be discussing the biggest political stories of the week with fellow political commentators Marina Purkiss, Maximilien Robespierre and Alex from Political X. Johnson marked his 1000th day as Prime Minister this week by apologising to Parliament for breaking criminal law. Despite what his Tory underlings have been doing, gaslighting the British public to believe that fixed penalty notices for breaking COVID laws he himself had enacted are the equivalent of speeding fines, I've got news for you. They're not. They are a breach of criminal law. And our Prime Minister can now accurately be described as a convict. The first convict ever to hold the office of British Prime Minister since it evolved around 300 years ago. But yet, we're being exhorted by Tory sympathisers to move on from this shocking fact, that we should draw a line under Partygate and allow the convict to concentrate on more important things, like people trafficking desperate refugees to the repressive state of Rwanda, or trashing basic human rights through draconian legislation aimed at outlawing all protest, or perhaps introducing voter ID as a way of skewing the next general election towards the Tories, or even privatising national treasure Channel 4. All of which seem to me to be a very good reason to keep the focus on Partygate, which neatly represents everything that is problematic about having a proven liar as Prime Minister. A man whose previous career has seen him sacked for dishonesty on 2 occasions as a journalist, and who is on tape conspiring with his Oxford University pal and Bullingdon Club colleague Darius Guppy to have critical News of the World journalist Stuart Collier beaten up.
Boris, have you got the number?
Right, look, there is a guy at the moment going through his files at the moment.
Fantastic. But I am telling you something, Boris. This guy has got my blood, alright? And there is nothing which I won't do to get my revenge. It's as simple as that.
How badly are you going to hurt this guy?
Not badly at all.
I want to know.
Okay, let me explain this.
If this guy turned out, I'd be fucking curious.
I guarantee you, he will not be turned.
How badly are you?
He will not have a broken limb or broken arm. He will not be put into intensive care or anything like that. He will probably get a couple of black eyes and a cracked rib. Nothing which you didn't suffer in rugby, okay? But you get scared, and that's what I wanted to do. I want to get scared, I want to have no idea who's behind it.
Sorry, if I get
You will not, Boris, I swear to you, if you knew...
Yeah, I'm not saying I've got this bloody number for you. Okay, Gary, I said I'll do it. Don't worry.
Boris, I really mean it, I love you.
But the Tory membership still elected Johnson as leader and Prime Minister, even knowing these facts. Apparently, they think, like Johnson, that conspiring to have a journalist beaten up is really funny. There is clearly a history of criminal behaviour by the convict in number 10, even before he became Prime Minister. So it should be of no surprise to anyone that criminal behaviour has continued while he's been in office. And Partygate is only the latest criminality. As far back as 2019, the Convict unlawfully prorogued Parliament to avoid a proper debate of the government's Brexit plans in the 5 weeks leading up to the Brexit deadline. Again, thanks to gaslighting from the right-wing media, much of the public think it's only the left who describe the suspension of Parliament at such a crucial time as unlawful. But that's not true. The 11 Supreme Court justices ruled that it was unlawful, adding that the illegal action had an extreme effect on democracy. What is really frightening is that the convict's reaction to this ruling was to announce a crackdown on the ability of the courts to challenge his government's decisions, adding insult to injury by aggravating the grave attack on democracy by challenging the independence of the judiciary. This is what all populist governments do. The UK government, taking a leaf out of the playbooks of the populist Truth and Justice PIS government in Poland, the Orban Fidesz government in Hungary, and of course the Putin regime in Russia. No wonder the convict has such a cosy relationship with people close to that regime, his party receiving around £2 million of Russian money since he entered number 10. And then there was the wallpaper for festivals corruption, arising from the luxury makeover of the convict's flat in Downing Street. He and his latest wife, Carrie Johnson, the woman whose name doubles as her job description, spent more than £112,000 revamping the flat. The Prime Minister was planning to get a charitable trust to pay the bill, but regular Tory donor Lord Brownlow paid instead when the deal fell through. The Prime Minister claimed ignorance of this, but text messages then came to light that proved not only did he directly ask Brownlow for approvals of the refurbishment plans, but that in those same messages he also promised to examine the Brownlow's proposals for a second Great Exhibition. Once this law-breaking affair came under the public spotlight, the convict settled the bill himself. But the Tories were fined £18,000 for not recording the donation properly. Look, I like to keep these videos reasonably short due to pressure of time, but I could give you 100 more examples of Johnson's rule-breaking and potentially illegal activities. But I'll just give you one final example. Johnson's use of public money to attack Labour and to promote Tory party policies. I gave a few examples of this in relation to the Tory flagship policy of levelling up in a recent video. And this week, Johnson repeated this law-breaking by announcing the government's inhumane and international law-breaking Tory policy of trafficking refugees to Rwanda. And this announcement was made on the very first day of the purdah period for the local elections in May. Again, using public money to promote the interests of his party. His political party, that is, not one of those parties that he didn't know was a party where he pours the drinks and is ambushed by a cake. And this in itself is just a continuation of a pattern of misuse of public money to promote Tory political interests, which encompasses the various scandals arising from the Towns Fund, where ministers hand-picked 61 areas from a list of the 100 most deprived areas to receive cash grants. This cash was handed over just 3 months before the 2019 general election, and even an analysis by the Murdoch-owned Tory-friendly Times newspaper found that all but one of those 61 constituencies were either Tory-held seats or marginal seats that they were targeting in that next general election. Many of these 61 towns were selected and prioritised over other, far more deprived areas represented by a sitting Labour MP. This is known as pork barrel politics and is more often associated with less developed democratic systems and corrupt societies. No wonder then that Robert Honest Bob Jenrick and his underling, Junior Minister Jake Berry, managed a "you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours" arrangement to sign off Towns Fund's grants for each other's relatively wealthy constituencies from this fund that was meant to target the most deprived areas of the UK. More recently, we've had the corruption scandals arising from the awarding of COVID contracts through a VIP fast lane, where the red carpet was laid out to friends, families and donors of Tory ministers. Millions of pounds of public money were handed over to these Tory cronies in return for often substandard, unusable or undelivered PPE and COVID tests. The High Court has ruled on test cases that these contracts were unlawful. And that word, unlawful, seems to arise whenever we talk about Johnson, the convict at number 10.